Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know that it's unusual to be offering you a longer video, but I had some more to say today. I'm often, and this is far from unique to me, and there are other people in the sphere who are called the same, and they don't need to be named. I'm often called a failed actress. I'm often told that I'm desperate for fame. I'm in the conservative sphere, in the political commentator sphere, purely for fame because, of course, I used to be an actress. Up until recently, this was a comment almost exclusively from leftist trolls, and so it didn't really bear addressing, and perhaps it doesn't bear addressing now, but I have some more that I would like to say on the subject. And that is not to give any credence to any troll, left or right, but really to offer you a bit of my story, a bit more of my story that I hope will have some general application for your life as well. Because, well, I'll get to it and maybe hopefully you'll stick with me. So, this is a longer video because I've got a bit more to say. I know you're used to seeing me from my car. And by the way, the reason that I offer you shorter form videos from my car is that right now that's what I have access to. I currently am not in my own humble abode. When I am there, I do not have access to the equipment to do longer form videos. I started off doing longer form videos, but some things have changed in my life, and I'm also, I admit, a bit of a perfectionist. And what I have accessible to me is a very small, very refurbished laptop, my car, and my iPhone, which has a decent camera. And so right now, I'm going to use the resources that I have to bring y'all truth, and I know that a lot of you find that valuable. I dismantle leftist logic in 90 seconds or less, and certainly some people don't have a great attention span, so if that's the case, my videos are for you, or if you're just busy and you don't have a lot of time. But today I do have a bit more to say, so I hope you have some time. Uh, it is true. I used to be an actress. I know that is shocking, shock and dismay. And I studied it. I studied it very intensely. In fact, this is sort of funny to me now because I have so many different views on college than I used to. But I have a degree in acting. I have a BFA, which, if you don't know, is a Bachelor of Fine Arts, which is a more intense conservatory style training than, say, a Bachelor of Arts. And the university, the program that I went to, was actually quite rigorous. It was a little bit cutthroat. They would bring you in as a freshman, everyone would be a general theater major, take classes. And then in your sophomore year, they would start doing cuts. They would do a cut in the fall semester and then again in the spring. And by the time everything was finished, they would have cut it down to over 100 BFA hopefuls to about 10 to 15 of the BFA class. That would be the BFA class, and they would move on the next 2 years, junior and senior year, to take classes all together and to study quite intensely. I came in as a sophomore because I was a transfer student, and I was blessed enough to make the first cut and then blessed enough to make the second. And I was part of a BFA class with 11 other people. So for 2 years, there were 11 of us total. So for 2 years, the 11 of us, we studied together. we went through the ringer together. I mean, it was a pretty intense program. And if I had known what I was getting myself into beforehand, I don't know if I would have or could have gone through with it. But I'm very grateful for those memories. And I will tell you, while I appreciate film and I appreciate being on a film set and I appreciate, being in front of the camera, acting, there is nothing like acting on stage. I loved and I still love theater. There's nothing like, watching or being in, especially being in a play. I mean, there's just nothing like it. And if you're wholly unfamiliar to that world, you do not do theater to get famous. You do not do theater to get wealthy. You do theater purely for the love of it. An agent is not going to come to your play and discover you. It's hard enough to get your friends to come to your play. It's hard sometimes to get the public to come to your play. So you do theater purely for the love of it, for no other reason. And prior to going to get my BFA in acting, I did community theater. I discovered community theater in my late teens, very early 20s, And where I come from in Orange County, California, there was just such a vibrant community theater community that if you were not looking, you would not even know existed. It was several playhouses that put on really actually great work, put on great plays. And it was a bunch of people doing it for free. It was a bunch of, for lack of a better word, non-professionals, non-union actors who put on oftentimes professional grade work. And I was late teens, early 20s, so I was a barista, I was a waitress, I had, different kind of jobs, but these were people of all ages who would go to their 9 to 5. Either they never pursued acting professionally, or they did pursue it, didn't work out. Some of them were still driving to LA for auditions, whatever. But they would go to their 9 to 5. After work, they would come audition for these plays. If they got cast, because it wasn't always easy, it was competitive, then they would commit to a rehearsal schedule for 1.5 to 2 months, usually Monday through Thursday evenings, again, after work, sometimes weekends. They would rehearse this play, put this entire production together, and then open it and run it for several weekends, sometimes twice a day, and they did all of that for free. That is community theater. It's something you do purely for the love of it. And it astounds me to this day, the amount of talent that was in community theater. People you will never know, people you would never know. I'm one of them. And it was really something. And after I graduated with my BFA in theater, I continued to do theater. And more often than not, it was for free. I moved to LA, and because this was something I was trying to pursue professionally, yes, I did pursue on-camera work. And I love on-camera work. It's just, there's nothing like theater. And, I will say that if you are in acting, be it theater or even on camera, to become famous, to become wealthy, honestly, good luck. Because there's some crazy low percentage of Screen Actors Guild members who are actually making a living at acting. It's a very low percent. And of course, all of those people are not famous people. They're not all people that you would recognize as a household name. They're just people who are good enough to work regularly. So it is incredibly challenging. And I know we all know this, to become famous, to become wealthy from acting. But I get the trope. I get, oh, you're in Hollywood because you want to be famous. You're an actor because you want to be famous. There's certainly some truth to it, but it's actually a very challenging path to fame, to wealth. It's not easy. And eventually I decided that I no longer wanted to pursue acting. I no longer wanted to pursue auditioning. Now, I will still act sometimes when I'm asked. And the funny thing is, within the past 2.5 years, I have wrapped 2 feature films. Those were my first ever feature films. So I was auditioning. I was an actor for a very long time, and I never got a feature film. Then I quit acting, I quit auditioning, and I get 2 features, my first ever features. And that was just because I was asked. And so when someone asks me to do it, I will do it. When someone asks me even just to audition, I will absolutely do it. But I don't consider myself an actor anymore. I don't pound the pavement. I don't have headshots. I don't have a resume. I don't look for auditions. I don't do that. My life has taken a different path. And I've gone into the reasons why I quit acting. One of the reasons is around 2017, 2018, that is the first time that I can recall really noticing this push for racial diversity above everything else. And it was stark. I mean, it was obvious, especially in theater and in Hollywood. I feel like a lot of these bad ideas start in Hollywood. I know they probably start on college campuses, but I feel like they go straight to Hollywood and then they expand elsewhere. So it was obvious in Hollywood. And I have no issue with racial diversity. I do take issue when it is your highest value, when it is your highest pursuit. It's your most important thing that you have to get done, is having as many colors as possible. I don't jive with that. It was also the first time that I heard the phrase white privilege. And I know the phrase existed before that. It existed for decades before that, but it was the first time that I remember it being kind of everywhere all of a sudden. And even though I was still so liberal at the time, it immediately did not sit right with me, because white privilege does not match my experience of life. It doesn't match my parents. It doesn't match their parents. I'm very blessed in many ways. I'm an American. I have my good health. I have people who love me. None of that has to do with the color of my skin. And I promise you, I have not been gifted anything special, anything privileged because of the color of my skin. And I was still so liberal, but that didn't sit right with me. And this push for racial diversity above everything else didn't sit right with me. And it became abundantly clear. And I say this with no bitterness because in retrospect, hindsight being what it is, I'm very grateful for the way everything has turned out thus far because I left acting well before COVID and I left acting well before becoming a conservative. And those are two things that I could never have predicted. And they would have been really hard to navigate if acting was still my dream. If I was still wanting to be in Hollywood, if I was still wanting to be in the theater community, those are two things that would have been really hard to navigate. So it worked out. But I say without any bitterness that it became abundantly clear that I was not wanted in this community. I was a second-class citizen because of the color of my skin. And I can only imagine how much worse it is for a white man. People did not want to tell my story as a white woman brunette. People did not want me to be on stage or on camera telling their story as a white woman brunette. And that became so clear. And I could tell story after story like this, but there's one that comes to mind briefly without too many details. I belonged to a theater company, and you had to audition to get into this theater company. You had to maintain good standing by volunteering for free, doing work for the company. And whenever we put on a play, the auditions were open not to the public, but to the members of this company. Well, one time we put on a play, and it was a very small cast. It was 4 characters and only 1 female. Now, I did not even audition for this play, so I really had no personal attachment to any of this outcome or any dog in this fight. But what ended up happening is there were 2 days of auditions. Members in good standing came and auditioned. And after all that was said and done, either the playwright or the director said, I want at least 50% diversity. Reminder, it's a 4-person cast with 1 female character. And I just thought, well, that's something that you probably knew before we held the auditions, and you probably should have made that clear, especially given the fact that our company, while diverse, was majority white, as many theater companies in America are, as many things in America are. I think that's just something that could have been said, and maybe there would have been someone, especially a woman, with there being only 1 woman character, who would have decided, you know what? My chances of getting cast in this are just got a lot smaller. Maybe I won't prepare an audition. Maybe I won't drive down to Hollywood and do this. Maybe I'll just do something else that day. I just think that that's something that you could have made clear so that people could have made a more informed decision. At best, it seems very disrespectful of someone's time, purely because of the color of their skin. And what ended up happening, this was kind of a kerfuffle in the theater company. They ended up going outside the company, outside the members of good standing who had auditioned for the company, who had volunteered for the company, who had come and probably offered really good auditions, probably could have fit the bill, could have fit the character. They ended up going outside of those people to find outside people to cast in this play purely because of skin color. And that, to me, is it the end of the world? No. Is it right? No, I don't think so. I think that it is treating people like second-class citizens because of the color of their skin. I think it's at best being disrespectful of them, being disrespectful of their time, if nothing else. I don't think it's right. And there were just a bunch of things like that it was like, how many colors, how many skin colors can we get on stage? And that was the pursuit, as opposed to, let's tell a wide variety of stories. Let's really move people. Let's touch people. Let's move audiences. The goal was color, diversity, scoring points that way. And then the second reason I left acting was that, and this has nothing to do, this is a perennial truth really, and has nothing to do with wokeness or racism, but I had read somewhere once, and I didn't know how true it was until I lived it. When you're pursuing acting, your job is auditioning, and your vacation is booking. So your job, which doesn't pay, is to audition. And it's not just a 9-to-5 job where you can clock out at 5. You audition anytime, day or night. I don't mean anything untoward, late at night in the casting couch. I just mean There are auditions after 5. There are auditions late at night. There are auditions across town. There are auditions that you get a couple hours notice for. There are auditions that come up that conflict with your actual job where you make money and then you have to scramble around to try to find someone to cover for you. It is a stressful life, friends. And your vacation is booking. And of course, we all know that booking does not happen as often as auditioning. And sometimes when you book, you're not paid. And sometimes when you're paid, it's not a living wage, especially when we're talking about non-union projects. So it's a hard life. And people know that, but they don't really know it until they live it. It is challenging. And even though I have so many qualms with Hollywood, so many qualms with what it has become, maybe what it always was, so many qualms with what theater has become and the wokeness and all of this, I do admire the people. And again, a lot of people whose names we'll never know, who stick with it, because it takes guts, it takes a thick skin, it takes a drive, it takes a hunger. It is hard. And I admire those people. But eventually I decided this is just not the life I want to live. This is not for me. It is constant struggle. I remember one time I went to an audition. Oftentimes what will happen is you'll see a casting call, especially for independent or student films or something like that. You'll submit your headshot, your resume, your reel, and if they like that, they offer you an appointment. And then you go to your appointment and you audition. They'll oftentimes send you sides to prepare beforehand. So I had done that for this one audition, and I was offered an appointment. I was given an appointment. I was given the sides. I prepared. I drove to Hollywood, which is never fun. Found parking, which is never fun. I walked into a casting office that I'd been in many times before, and I sat down, and eventually the producer came out and grabbed me and said, "We want you to run lines with this male actor." I think he'd already been cast in it, and it was, they wanted to read me against him to see chemistry and that kind of thing. And they wanted me to rehearse a little bit beforehand with him prior to. So the producer brought me to this male actor. We were in a side room and we started running lines, kind of figuring out what we were going to do in the room, that type of thing. We were in there for not 10 minutes when this poor producer comes out again and she says, "Natalie, we're actually good for the day." And I had an appointment and I never even made it in the room. There's that trope of they say, "Thank you," and that's all they say after you've worked so hard and prepared, or, basically, "Don't call us, we'll call you." I didn't even make it in the room to get that far, to blow it or to have that anticlimactic moment. I don't know what happened. I had an appointment. They'd seen my stuff. I walk in, I rehearse with the guy, and she says, "We're good for the day." It's as if you're sitting in the waiting room waiting for a doctor, and the receptionist comes out and says, "Sorry, the doctor's actually good for the day." It's kind of like, what the hell? So, and the funny thing is that producer saw me years later and recognized me. I didn't recognize her. It was years later. I was working in a restaurant. I was super busy. And she apologized. She remembered my name and she apologized for that. And I could not for the life of me tell you what she said the reason was for, but it stuck with her too. And that, that's a story that sticks out, and I don't mean to make light of it, because of course we know that people are preyed upon, people are abused, that type of thing. And that is a whole different ballgame. But in general, actors they're treated like garbage, really. It is, again, not an easy life, not an easy pursuit, to have an audition appointment and you prepare and you show up and then you're told no thank you before you even make it in the room. It's just not an easy thing to pursue. So eventually I decided, this is not for me. This is not the life I want. And my life took a different direction. But one of the things that always kind of makes me chuckle a bit when I hear this failed actress thing, or you're just in it for fame, and again, it's not exclusive to me, is I would love to invite anyone to tell me logically how it is that you think a person, an individual, presumably me, but let's just say an individual, who's desperate for fame. So she decides she wants to be an actor. Then she quits acting relatively early on, when she's still relatively young. She's so desperate for fame, she doesn't have to quit acting. Yet she quits. But she's still really desperate for fame. So she skips over OnlyFans or something of that nature. And then her next best bet is conservative commentator for free in one of the most liberal cities in America. I don't understand the logic. I don't understand how you get from A to Z. Because you skip a lot of steps in between. That you think that the next most viable option for someone who's desperate for fame is to be a conservative commentator for free in Los Angeles. I don't really get the thought process there. It's lost on me. And, if I'm being completely honest, first of all, I'll say, and I've said this before, and I don't say this with any pride. I don't think it makes me more genuine, but I have been speaking up for 3 to 4 years, and I have not made a dime. I am not funded by anyone. I'm not paid by anyone. The only money that I have made is now that Elon Musk has instated ad revenue sharing on X. I make some money. And while it's more than enough to pay for the service, which I think is $8 or $11 a month, I don't know. It more than pays for itself. It is not enough to live on. That's for me. I know it's different for everyone, but that's for me. So this idea that I'm funded or someone is paying me, I'm grifting. I mean, the money the money is not there, friends. I'm not making any money from it. And I will say this, and you can totally judge me. If I could go back in time and have a choice, I would stay asleep. I would stay liberal. I would stay asleep. Because it would be easier. It would be easier. When I was a liberal, I was not an angry leftist out in the street, handcuffing myself to some place. I was completely uninformed, completely uninvolved. I just knew that Democrats were the good people. I knew that abortion was a right. And I went every 4 years and I voted for the Democrat candidate. That's it. That's it. And I'm not proud of that. But in retrospect, that is an easy life. I had problems, okay? But they had nothing to do really with politics, or at least I didn't connect them to politics or the way that the government runs or anything like that. So if I had a choice, I would stay asleep, because if I had stayed asleep, I wouldn't have lost friends. I wouldn't have lost acquaintances. I wouldn't have lost people that I graduated with, and those 11 people that had done theater with me, those long hours, those rehearsals, those plays, people who knew me, who liked me, who prior to would have spoken highly of me, who thought I was sweet, who wrote me letters of recommendation. I lost so many of those people. I had family member relationships damaged. I certainly lost jobs. None of that would have happened if I hadn't woken up. So yes, if I had a choice, I would stay asleep. If I had stayed asleep during COVID, and I don't mean cowardly and just got along to get along, but I mean stayed asleep, genuinely bought the COVID propaganda, my life would have been so much easier. I could have put on a mask and not felt bad about it, not felt like I'm betraying myself or betraying the truth. I would have felt like I was doing a good thing. I wouldn't have had to steel myself prior to walking into a grocery store or a gas station for 2 seconds because I'm unmasked and there's a mask mandate and somebody is going to yell at me. My life would have been so much easier if I had stayed asleep. So if I had my druthers, I would have stayed asleep. I was not looking to become famous, and I'm not famous. And I know that to some people, my accounts might seem big. They're really not. But I was not looking to become famous. I was not looking to become a conservative. I was not looking to become a Trump supporter. I was not looking to become a Christian. None of those things I was looking for. They happened completely organically. And a lot of you know this story. Summer 2020 changed my whole life. I have been going along with the COVID restrictions. I was afraid of COVID like so many people. I had lost my jobs. 2019 had been a challenging year for my family. I had to step up financially, which is fine. But then 2020 comes along. I lose my job. Everybody loses their jobs. And I go along with it. But then summer 2020 happens, and I'm told I can go out and protest or riot on behalf of a man who probably wouldn't have cared if I had died. But I can't go to work. And that blew my mind. And I was still so liberal. And again, in another circumstance, I would have been totally for BLM. I would have been crying over this death. I would have been for this cause. But here we're coming off already 3 months at that point where I'm not allowed to go to work, and I'm still not allowed to go to work, but I'm allowed to go out and protest or riot or loot. That felt like a slap in the face. That felt like a punch in the gut. That felt like everything I thought I knew to be true about the Democrats caring about the little guy or about the poor, the struggling American. That just felt like none of that is true. And so I walked away from the Democratic Party, and that was like, once you saw it, you could not unsee it. And it became this domino effect of I started looking into things and realizing I'm not just being lied to about COVID or BLM. I've been lied to about so many things, and it's caused harm in my life. It's caused harm in my generation. It's caused untold harm. And so I felt like I had to start speaking up. Not just because of COVID and the response we were having still at the time in 2020, 2021. And I knew this is bad news. This is not going to be good. The vaccine passports are coming, all of this stuff. And I ended up being right. So many of us ended up being right. But I also felt like I had to speak about the greater lies that have just infected my generation. And so I started speaking. And that was driven by this sense of not fame seeking or anything else. It was driven by a sense of betrayal and wanting to save other people from that. And it's funny, I was just in Wisconsin with Walk Away with Brandon Strock, and he made a profound point that there were 5 of us in the group engaging with college kids, Gen Z, across Wisconsin. And Brandon pointed out that all of our stories are different, but they all share a common theme, as almost every Walk Away story does, of betrayal. It's not just, oh, let me go change my party affiliation, no big deal. It's a sense of betrayal that you have been lied to, that there are lies everywhere, that people are falling for, and now you see the truth and you desperately want other people to see the truth. And that is why I started speaking up. And I never would have imagined, even though, again, my accounts are very small, I'm grateful for the growth they've had. I never would have imagined that it would bring me to this point, bring me to anywhere. I just wanted to speak. If I could, I probably can't, but if I could save someone else from suffering like me, or suffering at all, or buying a lie, or feeling as though you wasted time, because I felt as if I'd wasted time. I thought, well, I don't want to wake up at all. I don't want to wake up at all, but if I have to wake up, I wish I would have woken up sooner. And that was the sense that I had, and I wanted to save other people from feeling that. And I understand that I probably can't, but that's why I speak truth. I know the truth will always be the truth, but I don't think it'll be preserved if we don't speak it. Kids are not born knowing the truth. So if we live in a society that has turned its back on God, turned its back on the truth, what are kids going to do? What are young adults going to do? What are the next generations going to do? So I speak truth because I do not want people to be lied to. They're going to be lied to, but I don't want them to buy the lies. And what I would like to say is that even though I didn't know where speaking up would bring me, I knew that once you put something out on the internet, it's there forever. So when I started speaking up in 2020, 2021, I knew that I was crossing a threshold that I could not ever uncross. Because once you put something out there, it's there forever. And even though I had left acting 2 years ago at that point, I had always thought, well, maybe I'll go back. You know, especially in 2019, late 2019, I was offered my first feature film. And it had reignited this fire in me. And we ended up having to pause production because of COVID. But it had reignited this fire in me that I thought, I think I might go back to acting. And then the whole world changed. And then I changed. And I knew once I started speaking, I'm not going to ever be able to go back to acting. Ever. Because it's a very small world. It's a small theater community. It's small in Hollywood. Everybody knows everybody else. And once you put something out there, it's out there. And I knew at the time that, again, even if I only ever have 5 subscribers and 2 of them are my parents, this will always be associated with me. And I knew already that what I was saying, even though I was still so new to it and I wasn't really strong in my convictions, I wasn't really a conservative, wasn't really a Christian, was just kind of like blurting stuff out in my first few videos, I knew that what I was saying was not okay. And I knew that because I had already started to dip my toe in the water in 2020, early 2021. I would write these long polite, well thought out Facebook posts about when are we going to get back to work and why are we caution taping off the jungle gym equipment and the exercise equipment at the park that's already out in the sun and it's already 6 feet apart and we already know you don't get it from surfaces. Like, why are we continuing to do this crazy stuff? I wrote posts about recalling Gavin Newsom. I remember early 2021, I shared Ben Shapiro's Sunday special with Gina Carano. And frankly, I didn't really even know who Ben Shapiro was. I didn't know who Gina Carano was before she got fired. But her story had so resonated with me because she had posted this relatively innocuous thing that it just so happened I could relate to, but in any case, it was still relatively innocuous, and she had gotten so much pushback that she got fired. Well, even though I was not a well-known actor or fighter employed by Disney, I could relate to that because here I was posting relatively innocuous stuff that was the truth and would later turn out to be the truth. And I was getting so much pushback. And I shared that special, got pushback for that too. These people who I had known all my life, who I had done theater with, who I had done those long hours with, they called me racist, they called me selfish, they unfriended, unfollowed, all of it. And so I knew already that what I was saying, and I laugh at it now because I've said far more now and far worse, but I knew it wasn't okay. I knew it was not acceptable. And I knew that I would never be able to come back from that because already when I was leaving acting in 2018, some independent short films, they would ask for your social media. They would ask for your follower count because in this day and age, that's free publicity. If you've got two actors, they're both equally talented, both equally fit the role, but one has 500,000 followers and the other one has 500, you want the one with 500,000 followers because that's free publicity for you. So it's a small world. We're all so digitally connected. And the stuff I'm saying, it was not okay with the theater community by and large, not okay with the acting community. And I knew I'd never be able to come back from that. I'd never be able to wake up, regret it, take it all down, and say, I'm going to go audition for this thing. And I don't regret any of it. I don't regret anything I've said. But the idea that it was an easy choice is false. No, I was not auditioning at the time. I wasn't an actress. No, I was not a famous actress. No, I probably never would have been a famous actress. No, I was not making a living at acting. But I did walk away from something that I loved to do this, to speak truth. Because once it's out there, you can't take it back. And the stuff I'm saying is still not acceptable to a lot of the people in those communities. And so the idea that I kind of flippantly pursued acting because I want fame is fundamentally false. And moreover, and especially the idea that I flippantly left acting because I was desperate to find fame elsewhere is fundamentally false. It wasn't easy to walk away from something that I love, and I have a real awareness that I may never act again. I may never be in front of a camera, on a set, acting with other people. I may never be on stage again. I may never be in a play. Now, of course, anything can happen. I may start my own theater company, do my own independent film. I think that there's a conservative company somewhere, theater company somewhere in America, because I know they did Andrew Klavan's play last year. So, you know what? Anything can happen. And I've been blessed enough to be able to do these films, to be invited to audition for a couple things. But I know that the chances are it may not happen again because I'm not welcome in that mainstream acting world. And that's okay, but it wasn't an easy thing to walk away from. And the last two things I want to offer to you, and these have more general application, so maybe you can take something from them. When someone says you're a failed actress or a failed anything, or that you're just desperate for fame, you're here for fame, it is such a obvious, transparent attempt to discredit you. This person, whoever it is, has decided they don't like you, and now they're looking for reasons to not like you after they've already decided they don't like you. And that's backwards. They've decided they want to discredit you, and now they're looking for reasons to discredit you. That's backwards. And it's so transparent because when you meet someone new and you're neutral to her, you don't, and she says, oh, I used to be an actress. You don't say, oh, I can't talk to you. You used to be an actress. You were just here for the fame. I can't trust you. And when you like someone, when you're close to someone and she says, oh, I used to be an actress, you don't say, oh, we've got to stop. I can't know you anymore because you used to be an actress. No sane, well-adjusted person does that. But when you've already decided that you don't like someone for whatever reason, and then you're desperately looking for reasons of why she shouldn't be liked, then you start picking at little things like you used to be an actress, which is really a neutral thing. The fact that you ever pursued acting is a neutral thing. And then people color onto it what they want to color onto it, as with so many things. This is not exclusive to acting. And the last thing I want to offer to you is that when you disparage someone for being a failed actress or being a failed anything or just being here for fame because you used to be an actor, so obviously you're just here for the fame, the very obvious implication in that is that a person cannot change. A person cannot evolve. A person can never take a new path, can never change her mind. Once you start on a path, you had better keep to that path. Otherwise, we will judge you. Once you say you're something, you better keep saying you're that something. Otherwise, we will try to discredit you. And that is such a narrow-minded, reductive way to live, and honestly, a dishonest way to speak about other people, because not only does it not match my story, it probably doesn't match yours. If you're on this earth for any length of time, you have probably fundamentally changed, evolved, and thank God for it. And my story, which I'm profoundly grateful for, is full of nothing if not change. I used to be an actor. Now I'm not. I used to be a liberal. Now I'm not. I used to be a feminist. Now I'm not. I used to be atheist agnostic. Now I'm not. And I'm very, very grateful for those things. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I used to be an actress, which is part of what brought me to where I am today. I'm not going to apologize for anything I've ever done in as far as my past as a whole, for the people I've harmed, of course, for the people I continue to harm, of course, but I'm not going to apologize for my past. I'm not going to apologize that it took me till 2020 to be a conservative or to wake up, for lack of a better phrase. I'm not going to be discredited by the fact that I used to be an actor. And yeah, my acting reel is out there. So what? So what? And this goes for you too. This goes for anything. Don't ever apologize for being where you are. You are right where God needs you, more than likely. Do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on your liberal friend or your liberal family members, because you really genuinely never know where life is going to bring them. And do not ever let someone make you feel lesser than because you weren't a conservative soon enough, or you weren't a Christian soon enough, or you pursued acting, or you did this or that other unacceptable thing. Don't ever let someone make you feel lesser than. The only thing that matters is where you are right now, where you're going, and where you are with God. That's what matters. If you are still watching this, I want to thank you so much. If nothing else, you know me a little bit better, but I do hope that this touched you, applied to your own life, moved you in some way, and that you take it with you. And I will see you again next time, probably from my car.